Hi there, folks. This is WP-Tonic live every Saturday from 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And either we go on for an hour or 2 hours. What we normally do, folks, in the first hour, we have a news section. We have a panel of regulars who can choose to spend their first hour of the morning with us, or if they're Eastern time, it would be a bit later. John, my normal co-host, and hopefully some other people are going to join us during the show. Basically, we have a news section, and then we go on to a main topic. And our main topic this Saturday is the best hosting companies for your WordPress website. It's always a controversial topic. It always gets a good discussion. So I think it's going to be a good ramble, as I say. What do you say, John, my beloved co-host?
Yeah, it's definitely always a hot topic, and especially this last week. So,
yeah, we got Kim's moderating the chat because her voice is gone, she reckons, which is understandable. My voice sometimes goes, doesn't it, John? So we go off on the first news story that I found, and this was that this was under WP Tavern. The WordPress meta team published prototypes for the plugin directory redesign. What did you make of that, John?
Well, looking at it, it basically looks like a more minimalistic design, which is kind of like what everybody is, moving toward right now. I think the argument is that like a lot of the information, like downloads and installs, is not in this, and that had some people saying, why are you taking that information out? Overall, it's not that much different. It's just more minimalistic. I guess it's more modern. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to be inside what goes into these design decisions.
Yeah, as a general discussion point, what would you suggest that they should do to improve it if you were involved in it at all? Is there anything that comes to mind that you feel that should be done to improve the experience of the plugin directory?
Well, it seems to me like they're really trying to kind of reflect, like, say, like when you go in the back end of your WordPress install and you're searching for plugins, it kind of surfaces the most popular ones. This one seems to surface like the trending plugins, the ones that are being installed more recently. So maybe I would say that it looks like they're trying to surface the plugins that the community feels are the most useful. So,
yeah, which is understandable, isn't it, John? Because that there's been some remarks, obviously this kind of, I'm trying to find the right words here, John, because all the fundamental plugins in that directory are free, but there's a lot there that are kind of cut down versions of Premiere, and it's the main tool that almost any plugin developer who's also got a commercial theme uses to publicize their commercial plugin, is by also having either a cut down version or a minimalistic version of that plugin. So there's been a lot of discussion about, the system has been, I'm trying to find the right word, what word would you use? I wouldn't say they're cheating, but they're kind of massaging the results. That's the right word.
Yeah. So definitely there's a lot of plugins that use the freemium model. They have a free version on the WordPress repo, but they offer a paid version that has more features and more flexibility. And, that's a successful way to go, because if you can get your plugin installed, 500,000 times, a certain percentage of those people are going to upgrade to the pro version because they just want more features, or they just want to make sure that they're not missing anything. So it really is a numbers game. A lot of people have been criticizing plugins that use excessive advertising inside of the WordPress admin area. But again, it's a free plugin, so I guess, you just get what you get when it's free. So
yeah, their main criticism has been the abusing the 5-star suddenly, that's where some of the
so
criticism.
let's discuss that too. Like in the last couple days, there's been a hashtag going around on Twitter, the WP reviews in real life or whatever. And it's basically like a series of tweets where it's a hashtag basically where people are saying like how users, basically criticize like plugins for not doing like everything that they want. And if you go search on Twitter, you'll see them applying that to other businesses like in the real world. And I guess it is kind of funny, but in a way too, this is the ecosystem that you're buying into, that you're working inside of. You can't control what users do. You can only control like how you respond to them. So it's interesting. Go search that out too. So
yeah, and also I think it's key. We're going to talk quickly about themes as well, but plugins and themes. I've always had this stance that I felt that both directories should have allowed commercial themes and plugins to be part of both directories, and allowed the community to vote on those on a clearly denoted group of milestones or priorities: support, quality of plugin, and allowed the community vote and have a threshold which would be hard to manipulate to get into that, and also have guidelines. And if that commercial theme and plugin met those guidelines, they would have a community stamp of approval that have met certain standards. And I don't really see any problem with that. But a lot of people disagree with my position, which is fair enough. What's your response to that kind of my statement? Do you think there's any worthiness in it, or do you think the present system is the best that can be done?
Now, I remember when you originally asked Matt Mullenweg this at WordCamp San Francisco in 2014. And
I'm consistent, aren't I?
You are consistent, but I can't remember exactly what he said, but
he said no, basically.
Yeah, yeah, it was like no, yeah, but basically, I would say if you're automatic, the idea is maybe that you don't want to have, you don't want to, how do I put this? Maybe you don't want to like be excessive competition. You don't want to like create a situation where people can accuse you of having a monopoly or manipulating the market. So say like a theme forest is pretty much like when you Google WordPress themes, you're either going to get the WordPress the free theme repo, or you're going to get theme forest as your top result. And aside from that, like a lot of people don't know where to get themes. I think that their feeling is they don't want to like jump into the paid theme market quite yet. Who knows if that'll change in time.
Yeah, I can. I totally see where you're coming from, but my stance is, by not doing this, you've allowed a couple. The most dominant is Theme Forest, and you've allowed themes to get on top of Theme Forest directory that really are not in the spirit of WordPress, are not the best representation of WordPress. They give they are blow. We had this discussion last week, and we had. If you go to the website, folks, the latest podcast is on there. It gets published on iTunes on Sunday, but if you want a peek, it's on the website, where we talk about this, don't we? That some of the most popular themes on Theme Forest are some of the most bloated, slow, poor representation of WordPress that you would want. And I see that has happened because of, basically because Matt, and it's not a black and white, he might be right and I might be totally wrong. But I think that situation has happened because it kind of tries to divide commercialism from freely available themes and plugins. And I don't really understand intellectually, I don't understand why there is that. It seems to me a bit of an artificial line. Or am I just blabbing, John? Am I just going on a blab here, or do you see anything where I'm coming from?
Well, I and I can't tell you the exact reasons why, Matt Mullenweg and Automatic want to just have like a free repo and not get into the theme marketplace.
I'm not saying, John,
business. Yeah.
I'm not, but in a way, with the purchase, on the other hand, I'm sorry to jump in, John,
go ahead.
But with the purchase of Woo Themes, they have jumped in to the commercial theme market in a way, haven't they?
In a way, but Woo Themes is like its own separate subsidiary. It is its own entity, and like Automatic is like the umbrella corporation. And like I said, like Woo Themes like continues to operate independently, even though they're owned by Automatic. I'm sure that you'll see like WooCommerce like integrated into the .com service at some point. I just think that money changes everything, and with the free theme repo, they're able to set strict guidelines for quality, and they're able to offer themes that are safe and that are completely within the spirit of WordPress. And I think if they were to introduce like a paid theme marketplace or a premium marketplace, they might suffer some of the same maladies that Envato is suffering now, with having themes that are bloated, with having themes that are not the best for performance or security. And maybe that's just problems that they want to sidestep entirely for the time being.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, John. Like I say, I don't see this as a black and white issue, and I'm not saying where I stance on it is the correct one. So then I'm reposting this Thematic. It wasn't a theme that I've used, but I know it's been a really popular kind of theme. It's a kind of theme, kind of edging onto a framework in a way, wasn't it? A little bit. We had a quick pre-show discussion before we pressed the record button, and John was making what I see this as a kind of sign about the developer. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he works for God, my mind's gone back. He works for Matt as a theme wrangler. You said that you feel that the theme market has become really harder and harder to make a good living from. Would you like to expand what your feelings are around the general theme market?
Sure. So 7-8 years ago, the theme market was really where, WordPress entrepreneurs and companies were setting up shop and making money. And nowadays, the theme market is so flooded that to make a ton of money at themes, you either have to be one of the long established shops like Elegant Themes or a Woo Themes or an iThemes, or you have to be one of the top 10 or 20 selling themes on ThemeForest. And you've seen a lot of theme shops kind of close up or pivot like their model to try and get more into plugins, because that seems to be in the last few years where people are shifting focus and trying to develop products. Themes just seem like they've become very commoditized as far as functionality, and especially if you go to like a marketplace, they're all kind of similar. They're all kind of the same. It's hard to stand out. And as you saw a year ago with Array Themes, they left ThemeForest, but then they kind of came back and had a presence there too, because it's very hard to get eyeballs on your theme shop, your independent theme shop, because most people go to ThemeForest.
Yeah, I think we're touching. This is touching a very similar area to what we just discussed in a way. But before I go back to my old bone here and gnaw a little bit more, John, is that I'll just put this question: do you think that the RESTless API and like what Happy Tables are doing, because they are pivoting? I noticed. I think it was one of our news stories last week was Happy Tables. Folks, Happy Tables. It's an English-based coding shop, and they also got a range of themes that they sell through a kind of theme shop, but you pay a membership, and it's aimed at the restaurant industry. And they're pivoting a bit where they're through the RESTless API, they're going to add more kind of functionality information about like how many people booked through the website, more kind of detailed analytics, providing extra value by using the RESTless API. Do you see that as maybe an ongoing trend in the next year where company theme shops, they try and add more value and stop themselves becoming just a commodity by adding extra functionality through the API?
Yeah, I can see that happening, but I think that it's not going to be a ton of theme shops do that at first. I think you would get more into a subscription service with something like that, because what they're offering, like the integration with the REST API and what Happy Tables is doing, is more like an ongoing service, and it's not really the same thing as what you see people doing on ThemeForest, where they just bundle up like Visual Composer and Slider Revolution and put it in a theme with a ton of shortcodes. I think the REST API is going to change a lot of use cases for WordPress. You're going to see people use it for more and more diverse types of applications. But yeah, definitely, I think it could spark like a whole new segment of the WordPress product market.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to remark is I think I got two kind of observations by what you were saying about themes, John. Is that first of all, I think a lot of the smaller theme shops, most consumers who are not gone to meetups, not gone to a WordCamp, just your Joe owns a retail shop, a lawyer, accountant. They just do a search, and what comes up? ThemeForest. What comes up? Elegant themes. And they're in business. They're there to make money. Good luck to them. But by not allowing plugins and themes, commercial themes, into the actual normal dispository, and to be found, if you go to WordPress.org, be able to search for those as well. They've just given that oxygen to ThemeForest and elegant themes. And when that's made it much harder for smaller theme shops to even be found. Most of their consumer base don't even know they exist. And my other observation is like Studio Press. Well, I don't think Studio Press, I think they found a way around that. And the way they went round it is that they appealed to the kind of independent freelance developer who's doing some semi-customization. And they tend, who wants a library which they say to the client says, I can't afford a full customized look. But then the developer says, go off to Studio Press, choose a theme that's closest, and then I can modify it for this price. And I think they get a lot of their traffic from this kind of freelance developer community. And the last thing is I've had Rebecca Gills on the show. We've had Rebecca Gills on the show a couple of times, and she's managed to build up, and I don't think she's lying to me. I think she's got a very healthy business, John, in this where she's just kind of really strong in the SEO and aims at specific industries. And when you put a certain phrase in, her theme shop comes up. I think a lot of this is driven by the total dominance of theme forest and elegant themes when it comes to SEO, John. That was a mouthful, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, it was a mouthful. But
it was.
Again, so to address your first question, so if Automatic went in and made their own marketplace, their own Envato, I think that would actually make it harder for the independent theme shops, unless there is a way for them to list their stuff there. It'd make it harder for the up themes or the array themes or the Press 75s to get eyeballs on them, unless there is a way for Automatic to take their cut. So again, people might criticize that, but it's Matt's decision on how he wants to take what they're doing with Automatic. So at this point, they don't want to do that. No. So to address the second thing, yes, as far as when you Google stuff, when you Google WordPress themes, you're either going to get something like StudioPress or Theme Forest, or maybe the free repo. But the market is the market, and the people have spoken, and most people go to Theme Forest because they've got a wide selection. But what you're saying is true. A lot of people that use the independent theme shops like the Theme Foundry or I don't know, Pressware, StudioPress. Yeah, they are developers. But I can tell you that there's a lot of agencies that simply go to Theme Forest when they're building out a site, and especially if it's a less than $5,000 project, or even sometimes larger than that. I know tons of agencies that do this, that they just go to Theme Forest and pick up a theme too.
And I find that quite shocking in a way, but I don't know why. It's quite naive of me, isn't it? Really, it's quite naive, isn't it? It's quite naive of me, really, isn't it?
But the hardcore people inside the WordPress community, the people like me and you, and people who watch this show, they are the ones that actually know about the places like the Theme Foundry, or Theme Trust, or any of these other smaller shops that exist out there. It's the people who are not really the 1% of the WordPress community, whether that they're the do-it-yourselfer business owner that's trying to put together a site, the marketing manager for a regional business, or the agency or web developer on a team that's trying to put together a site. They're the ones that go to Theme Forest because that's just what comes up, and they don't explore. They're not part of the hardcore WordPress 1%. I think you had a third point, but I totally forgot what it was.
No, I don't blame you, because I was really waffling a bit. There was some substance to it. I don't think it was total waffle. Yeah. But you can tell I'm a little bit passionate about this, and it's an old bone that I've been gnawing away for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I remember. I remember what you're saying. You're bringing up Rebecca Gill in Web Savvy Marketing. Okay. But what she does is something that I see a couple people do. It's a little bit more unique because she's offering both the themes and the full service agency part. And you see a couple of people doing that out in the world. Web Savvy Marketing is one. Slocum Studios, Matt Medeiros is another. Jessica Barnard, the Pixelista, she's another one that does that. She sells her own themes and does the customization. Yeah. So there are people that do that, but it's like a smaller segment that do the product and the full service agency stuff and try and balance them both together.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting model. I think we go on. We're giving these two stories a good. I think they're interesting stories, weren't they? And I think we've added some extra to the discussion. Shall we go on to the main topic now, John?
Let's do this.
Let's do this, baby. So, how are we going to? I think what we should do first, if you agree, John, is go in the kind of differences between basic kind of levels of hosting, if you understand what.
Yeah, I do. I follow you. Yeah.
What is shared hosting? What is managed WordPress hosting? What is VPS? and what is, when you own your own physical server. Would you
Yeah, let's
agree with that?
explore that first. So people, because not all hosting is the same, and let's define.
And then we can go on to the juicy stuff of me going, slagging off some of these hosting companies. You're going to be very polite and diplomatic, and I can get all the angry Twitters, can't I, John? How does that sound? Yeah, right, I thought you might agree with that. Do you want to go off what is shared hosting? Can you give some your own views of why, when it's appropriate and when it might not be appropriate?
Okay, so a lot of people, they start out with shared hosting. And what that is the cheapest hosting that you usually find. It's usually $10 or less per month. And you'll usually see this on a website, and it'll say unlimited resources, or one domain, but you get, whatever, and it sounds good. But what they're failing to tell you is how shared hosting works is they take a server and they jam as many sites as possible into that server all at once. So there could be 1,000, there could be 10,000 sites on that one server, all sharing the resources. Yes, your resources are unlimited for $4 a month. They're unlimited as long as no one else is using them. But when you've got thousands of other sites on your same server, those resources are usually pretty weak. And so that's why you end up with sites that are really slow. That's how you get security vulnerabilities, because if one site on that server gets hacked, they can all be kind of cross-contaminated. But it's usually where people start. It's cheap. You can get a site up. It's not going to be the fastest site. It's not going to perform really well. Might have some security holes, but it's affordable.
Yeah. And do you think of the top people that are really in that market, do you really think, have you noticed that is there a great difference in how many sites? Do you sense there's a big difference on the amount of sites they're cramming onto these boxes, or do you think they just cram as many as they can, basically?
Well, some of them are definitely a little bit worse than others. They're all pretty bad. I know this is probably about 4 years ago now. I had some sites on a crocodile themed host, and it was okay. But then, they got bought up by, EIG, and it was instantly it got much, much worse. They moved servers, and it was, I'm guessing there's probably 9 or 10,000 sites on a shared hosting server. Definitely ones the generalized GoDaddy hosting is not really awesome. 1-in-1. All those Vistaprint, all those ones are kind of weak. They jam a lot of stuff in there. So
I don't know. Just want to clarify, folks. We have normally a regular panel. We're going to try and go through the basics of hosting. We've got one person trying to log in. We're going to continue the discussion. If someone a regular panel joins us, we're going to let them in, and then after we get through this, folks, we're going to open it to a general discussion. And if you want to join us for the general discussion, feel free. And if you've got any WordPress problems, me and John will help out. So I don't quite know where to take this conversation, because part of me wants to go on to VPS. The other part of me wants to discuss EIG, Endurance International Group, and the realities of shared hosting. Where should we go? Should we go on to VPS and then go back, and then we can talk about the different hosts and about...
Yeah, let's touch on EIG when we talk about the different hosts.
Yeah,
that's a good place to put that.
Because otherwise we're going to go down a warren.
Down a tangent, yeah.
We're going to go down... Now, how do you... I'm thinking of going to VPSs, but really what I think we should discuss is how would you classify the past couple of years, and I think all the main hosting companies are doing this, and I think it was started by WP Engine. This managed, it's still shared hosting, but it's sold as special. It's special WordPress shared hosting. It's managed WordPress hosting. I'm trying to find the right term. You know what I mean, though, don't you, John?
Yeah. So, there are definitely. So there's a couple different things. So,
because I think that kind of confuses.
No. So let me just preface this. So, like, we were just talking about shared hosting, and that's basically like you're jamming a whole bunch of stuff in there. VPS is the next step up from that, which is like a virtual private server, where basically like it's a virtual. They basically dedicate like a certain amount of resources on that server to each one of your sites that's installed there. It's basically like, artificial like enclosure. It's saying don't let these resources like leak. So as far as like the amount of like server power that you get, easiest way to explain it, the amount of server power and bandwidth and all that you get is basically like dedicated to each little enclosure there. So when you're talking about like managed WordPress hosting, some of the people doing that in the space, you're seeing more and more people do that. WP Engine, Flywheel, SiteGround. I think GoDaddy just launched like a managed WordPress host.
Can I say something,
yeah.
John?
Go ahead.
It's a little bit cynical. I think because I'm English, I think like WP Engine, Flywheel, what they're saying is we got these servers. There won't be quite as many people on these servers as some of these more generalistic, where it could be WordPress, it could be Joomla, it could be any kind of anything on these servers. What we put on these servers is only WordPress sites, and then we do a load of optimization specifically aimed at WordPress, and then we market ourselves as a specialist WordPress orientated company. And I think WP Engine and Flywheel, and there's a number, and I think most of them are very good companies. But then I think there's the bigger companies where I just feel in some ways it's just a marketing. They just get more money out of you in a way, and I'm not too sure that you're getting what they're saying they're providing. That you should be totally. I'm struggling for the word. I would take it with a pinch of salt about what you're specifically getting. What do you think about that?
So I think there is some grain of truth to that. Now you look at the companies like Pagely, you look at like WP Engine. Those companies have been inside the WordPress space for a long time, and they actually like optimize their servers. Have their own like must-use plugins that are installed there. They configure the server to, run PHP like a certain way, and configure like a htaccess file and things like this to make sure that you're going to have the best server-side speed and optimization and security. And what a lot of these managed hosts also do is they'll do like automatic updates to WordPress core after it becomes available. Some of them do like automatic updates to plugins. So they are like more of a truly managed WordPress host. Now I just like started migrating somebody to the GoDaddy WordPress hosting today. I've heard like lots of good things about it. And they have like a similar thing. They have like a plugin in the back that is kind of like manages like some of the stuff. Yeah. Basically, definitely.
I personally will not do business with. Well, I do business with them, but I will not. So we go into that, right? But sorry to interrupt. So what I think what we got to try and make clear with these, it's still like WP Engine, GoDaddy's Premier, WordPress. It's still shared hosting, and that's why they give you a list of plugins which they won't allow you to install, because it affects everybody on that server if they find it's a plugin, and that's why they do it, folks, because it's still shared hosting.
Well, technically, like, everything is shared hosting until you get to like a dedicated host where it's like just one site on one server. But usually that's crazy expensive, and you really don't need that until you get to a level of traffic where you're just booming. And yes, VPS and all these other things are like a form of shared hosting, but they're not like what we call like shared hosting. Like with WP Engine and the ones like that, they sell you a chunk of the, you have like your own server, and you can install, either one site if you're on the smaller plan, or like 10 sites if you're on an even larger plan, or, and it goes up from there. Say if you've got like a whole ton of sites.
So you think, because I should research and clarify this, because you're hinting at with somebody like WP Engine, it's more like a VPS system, where I thought
it is more like a VPS system. Yes.
I always envisaged their lower plans. I always thought they were reselling and VPS, and depending on which plan, where I like on the single plan, it was more like a reseller account, and that's why they're a bit finicky for understandable reasons about the plugins you run.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, part of that is like a lot of so one of the things too. There's Media Temple actually has like a list of like ones. They have like managed WordPress hosting too, but they have a list of like plugins that they won't allow. WP Engine is similar, because a lot of these managed WordPress hosts, they have like their own caching on the server side. And so they don't allow you to put in things like W3 total cache or super cache, because it's just not necessary. They're already doing like caching like on the server side. They also usually don't allow stuff like the, broken link checker or whatever, because, or certain ones like that are really intensive, like on your database, like when it's doing searching through your database for, certain things. Those ones that are really hard on the database can cause your site to sputter and crash, and so they don't want to have that happen. So,
yep. So, but I think it has kind of clouded the waters, and it kind of confuses, doesn't it, in some ways? And then we go on to the classic VPS, which I totally agreed with you, John. But I kind of see it as it's a container. You can have multiple containers on the server, but they don't leak. They are a kind of droplet, a container, and you're guaranteed so much resource of that server in that container. Where with the reseller, everybody shares the same resources, and depending on how during the day. It's a bit like the cable company with resellers. They have on the loop on your cable company, you can have great broadband, and then there's more and more people at a certain time of the day pile in onto that loop. Your broadband can get a bit dicey, and that's how I kind of explain it to people. That's how the shared hosting, they're all sharing the same resources of that server, and there's more, you can be affected by what other people, where with the VPS, you're guaranteed so many resources, but they are, like what you said, there's still multiple sites, and if that server goes down or gets affected by what these other people are doing, it could still affect you. Do you think that's a fair summary?
Yeah, it's a fair summary too. And that's why I never got into reseller hosting at all, because it's just not something I'm interested in. I don't care. And I know like a lot of old school webmasters and stuff like that would do that. They would you get people on a reseller plan, sign all the clients on a reseller plan, and it would be like recurring revenue. But the thing of it is I'm not really interested in the 5 or 10 or whatever it is extra dollars a month that you're going to get just for having someone on hosting. It just seems like, because here's the thing, man, if something happens in the middle of the night, say like, a site goes down, now you're responsible for that. And my feeling is there's not really much I can do about like the hosting server, like over here in the data center, like hundreds of miles away, except get on the phone or like send an email to the actual host that's going to be fixing it. So what I have always encouraged people to do is to get their own hosting plan. I'll point them in the right direction of what they should get that's right for their budget and that's going to give them the top performance. And I usually point them towards something like WP Engine, or Flywheel or whatever. SiteGround is fine too, but whatever is going to work for them. But I don't want that responsibility of being the guy that like is responsible for fixing stuff that like the downtime, because really that's that's the host is going to do that anyway. I don't want to be a system admin. And then I'll bring this up too. You said about like self-hosting like way in the early. There are a couple of web companies out there that do that. They run the servers like physically on their location for some of their clients. And I guess that's okay if you want to pay someone to be the system admin like full time. But these managed WordPress hosts like WP Engine, they're so much better at it. Why wouldn't you just pay them?
I'm tempted to answer.
I know why they do it. I mean, I know why they do it, but
yeah, but my view about what you just said, John, is a little bit different. But obviously I'm a little bit biased because obviously my company is a little bit involved when it comes to management. So I don't want to go down there because there's a slight conflict with me.
Okay,
so
just leave it. Just walk away. It's cool.
Yeah. With me, I'm going to mention it later on, but let's move on. So the VPS, so we've just described it. You get a set amount of resources. There can be multiple of these kind of containers on the server, and then you go to the kind of what is seen as the kind of Rolls Royce of hosting, where you have your website on one physical server. Would you agree with that? That's traditionally been seen as the kind of Rolls Royce, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have that level of traffic, then a dedicated server is definitely the way to go. But it's a lot of extra expense, and a lot of people aren't prepared for like how expensive it can be. But if you are receiving that much traffic, hopefully you've got like a solid business model, and it's not just trying to get AdSense. So CD Sulo, I hope I'm saying that right. Is asking in the chat room. Shulo. Yep. Okay. CD Shulo in the chat room is saying, what are your thoughts on Amazon S3?
It's great for the right things, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely, like there's people that use it for a CDN, and there's definitely, I would say like higher traffic sites, that's definitely something you want to look into as, a means of hosting. I think for like a lot of smaller businesses, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but for, larger scale site, it's definitely something to look at for sure.
So I think when it comes to this dedicated server, you need to understand that people compete on solid disk drives, how many processors, bandwidth, blah blah, and you got to understand all that, and also the jump in price. I think you really got to have a very, very strong business with a lot of traffic to really justify that. But for the right scenario, it's the right solution, isn't it, John?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, you are looking in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month, folks, for that type of setup. And I think if you really, there's good value, but don't go for cheap either, because you're going to get bitten on the bum. So look for good quality at a reasonable price, but don't go, if you're at that stage looking at really, but I think you could say that about all the spectrum. There's cheap and there's cheap. So I think with shared hosting, it goes from like below $5 up, doesn't it? And then I think with VPSs, it goes from, let's say, $30 up to 100 maybe. And then with the shared hosting, from 5 up to 29. Depends on if their market or what they're offering is kind of dedicated to WordPress. Would you agree with those kind of price?
Yeah, I would say, because I'm seeing this like roll out like a lot more. I don't know what you're seeing out there, but like a places like a Small Orange and stuff like that. Like they used to just have VPS, and now it's VPS WordPress managed hosting and stuff like that. So yeah, like a lot of people are picking up on that. Like it's, WordPress is a large chunk of the market. So, and they're seeing these other companies take the lead, like the Pagely's and the WP engines. And they're like, we want some of that too. So let's figure out what they're doing and figure out like how to, do something close to that. So.
Right, then I think it was partly caused by me, but I think you kept us on track, John. We had a bit of a wander, but I think we needed to kind of describe the different kind of layers, and because of the kind of where I think I'm
going to hit one question, one more question in the chat room. CD Shulo says, years ago, small and medium-sized businesses would get a T1 line and host their own servers. Has so many managed hosting and WordPress made this less attractive? Okay, so definitely, it's not just small businesses, but there are, there's all kinds of businesses that still want to like host their own. The problem, there's a couple of problems with this that I see. Unless you have a dedicated system admin like on staff all the time, making sure that like your server is running perfectly and making sure your software is updated and all that, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to like just have a professional like hosting company that does just that, like do it. Because part of the problem that I see, and not just with businesses that host their own, but also with the older IT companies that are in smaller, like rural areas, and maybe like they're the neighborhood, like hosting, that like the business owners known them for like 20 years. And so they don't want to leave them. They don't update their software as often as these guys do, as the bigger companies do. When they do update their software, sometimes there's glitches, and there's like a lot of downtime. If there's like a serious problem, they might not know how to diagnose it, because it's usually one person like doing self-hosting. And if that person can't figure it out, then, it's a real problem. But when you host with a larger company that just does the managed WordPress hosting, they've got a whole team of experts that are monitoring it. They've got tools that monitor the uptime. I just think it's a lot safer. Like there's a lot more redundant backups. There's redundant data centers. There's teams of system admins. It's not just one guy and not just one server on your premises. And I think self-hosting in 2016, like with a server on your own premises, is a lot less safe than entrusting it to like a company like WP Engine, because so many things can go wrong if you don't update, your version of PHP. That's a security vulnerability. If you don't, update your software, or, there's all kinds of things that could be happening in the background. So,
yeah, I kind of almost 100% agree with you, but it's just but where it comes, I know exactly where John's coming from, because some of the worst projects that I've had the misfortune to be involved with have been kind of IT companies that are regionally based, that had a load of clients that were with them from the 90s and from the early 2000s, and they don't update the stuff. They're not very helpful, and they really don't fundamentally understand what the hell they're doing. So I understand where you're coming from, John. So let's go on to the really juicy part.
Yeah. CD Shulo says, you have a nice way of saying, you have such a nice way of saying something sucks.
Well, he's much more diplomatic than me, John. That's why I love him. One of the things I don't think people understand is that the hosting industry in the US is really dominated by one company, and that company is Endurance International Group, EIG, isn't it? And two of the biggest companies that they own is Bluehost and HostGator. And I've got the list of the other, I think 60 to 70 other companies, hosting companies. A lot of them I haven't really heard of, but I think the Bluehost and the HostGator. So basically, I would say what their business model is, that they go in, and I do want to see if John agrees this, they go in, they buy maybe a regional hosting company or hosting company that's through hard work built up a book of business. They go in, they buy it, and then they go in, and it's a classical business model. They go in to reduce cost base, and basically they get in less well-trained staff. They move they close the call center and they move it to one of their regional call centers, and it's a cost-cutting exercise. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, that sounds like corporate America in a nutshell. Watch somebody else build up a business, offer them a ton of money to acquire them, and then to make the shareholders happy, you go in, start cutting labor, start closing all the regional call centers and outsource them, make people do more with less. Take all those sites that are on that, server, jam them into this tighter and tighter server until you've got a billion sites on one server, and you're still charging people the same amount, and just hope that they don't notice.
I can only give my own opinions, folks. I think you can find, loads of people are totally happy with Bluehost. Loads of people are really happy with HostGator, blah, blah, blah. I think now in 2016 you can find a lot better value. And if you're looking for not just price, you're looking for support, quality hosting with value for money. If the metrics is a little bit more sophisticated that you're looking for, folks, I think you can find much better value than you're going to get from EIG. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, I would say that definitely. But the problem is they're not exactly like putting a big label like on all the sites that they own, saying like owned by EIG. And that's kind of the point. Like the independent, yeah, like EIG like owns a ton, but like of the independent like hosting companies, it's really like GoDaddy, who also owns Media Temple, WP Engine, Flywheel, Pagely, SiteGround. There's some others I'm sure, but mostly others. Like, and if you look in the chat, like there's a couple links everyone's shared here of all the companies that they own, and it's quite a few. So
it is, but that list, a lot of them I haven't heard. So let's get more controversial, shall I, John? Yeah, and let's go to GoDaddy. Now, GoDaddy, Bob Parsons is not a very nice person, and
he's an elephant killer.
And he kills frigging elephants, guys. And I'm going to put the link that shows the video of him killing an elephant. He's a really nice human being, a quality individual, and he's still on the board of this company. He sold a lot of it and made himself a ton of money, which I've got no problem with. I've got a problem with him killing elephants and killing other creatures, and some of his ridiculous statements. But I'm a hypocrite, folks, because I still do a little bit of business with this company. So that's my problem, isn't it? But I just want to say it's on Wikipedia as well, this that I'm stating. I'm going to put the Wikipedia. This company is still not making a profit. He sold it, and he sold it to a group of venture capitalists. But this company is still making considerable losses, which most people don't know, do they, John? I'm putting the Wikipedia link here as well, where you can read that. I'm tempted to kind of go, here we are, right. Since 2012, the company has experienced a total loss of $531 million, John. GoDaddy founder Bob announced he's stepping down, but he is no longer the executive chairman, but he is still on the board of GoDaddy, John. Have I slagged him off enough, really?
Saying he's not a nice guy. Let's not forget about like all the the commercials that they were running like 10 years ago that were demeaning to women and using them as sex objects. So it's Also, do not forget about that. So,
it's the elephant killing that gets me, John.
I gotcha.
Right. I like Jumbo, and I don't think obviously it's I'm probably being simplistic here, folks, but I don't, and also I found their support quality to be dismal. I think I have got some clients that they're mostly a couple non-profits that I support for nothing, and they wanted the cheapest hosting, the most simplistic. They bought the domain from GoDaddy, and they insisted they wanted the hosting with GoDaddy. And I had a phone call last week, and the woman that kind of the office manager of this non-profit, she was on the phone for over 40 minutes, and they still didn't pick it up. And I've heard from other sources that it was getting bad, it's getting worse. It does change depending on the call center, and this is all changeable. But I think like what I said about EIG, I personally think you can get something better if you're looking, if price is not the only metric. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, price shouldn't be the only metric. I mean, because you're going to get what you pay for like 9 times out of 10. Support is a huge thing. Your hosting is going to be, there 99% of the time, but that 1% of the time that there's a problem with your site is when it really counts. And, I've had a lot of people deal with the, different hosts, and it's like, oh, something happened to my site, can you help me? Nope, can't help you, and so if you're, not paying anything for hosting, but you get crappy support, I mean, really, all that money you saved is not worth the hassle and the pain of like trying to get your site back, or trying to get it cleaned up, or trying to get it recovered, or all these things that happen. Because generally speaking, like the cheap hosts, the cheaper the hosting package, like the less that they care.
Yeah. So, folks, I think we're getting close to over an hour on the recording side. I'm going to close the recording side, John, but then we're going to look at, we're going to recommend some companies. I think we've gone over the 3 areas. And I think we covered two companies that are really big in hosting that I don't recommend, but they've got an enormous market share, which is which is interesting, isn't it, John? So we're going to also do a podcast next week about this subject, but it's going to be much shorter and more to the point, with less rambling from me and more input from John. And we will be back next Saturday, folks, with another WordPress subject.
Sounds awesome.